Traders, how are you? Marcello, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader. Today we're going to be doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. So overall, we had some good news in terms of jobs. We also had some good news in regards to the vaccines. That's part of the reasons why the market just went ballistic in terms of record news, or record highs, I should say, this week. Monday, the markets were lower. The investors mainly were taking gains for the month since we saw such big moves to the upside. Also, with a potential Biden administration, there's entities like Goldman Sachs that are talking about an increase in taxes and a removal of things like the reduction in the capital gains tax. We also had slower rollout of the vaccines. Tuesday, the market was higher. Both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ reached record highs. A lot of people, again, focusing on the vaccines, which basically means we can all go to a semblance of normal. I don't think everything's going to go actually back to normal, what was normal before the pandemic, because once these bureaucrats get a little taste of power, they don't want to let it go. But obviously, that means that people will start traveling again. Borders were open. Remember, we're not even able to go to Europe anymore right now. So things will go back to a semblance of normal. People will fly. People will travel. Oil, the demand will go back, and the economy will start moving again. Wednesday was slightly mixed amid the stimulus negotiations, which I'll let you know about that. Mostly higher on Thursday as well. And then Friday, very much higher, as we say in a way. I always do the Spanish videos first, and I always think in Spanish when I'm doing the videos in English. But all three major indices reached record highs. Slowest job growth in 6 months raised the investor expectations of a new stimulus bill. And the Dow for the week went up 1.02%. For the year, it's still up 5.89. S&P 500 for the week is up 1.67. For the year, it's up 14.5. And the NASDAQ is up 2.11%, while for the year, it's up 38.91%. Overseas markets in Europe, the FTSE in London was the biggest winner at 2.86%. The Swiss market was the biggest loser at 1.31%. In Latin American markets, my dear Colombia, the coal cap, which is the biggest winner at 6.30%. And in the Middle East and Africa, the South African markets was up 2.76%. Asian and Australian markets mostly higher for the week. The biggest winner there in the Far East is the Philippines at 5.05%. And Bitcoin reached a record high, reached the first time 20,000 for the first time, ever so briefly. But remember that it was at 2017, the high, I had it written here, I believe, 19,783. Now, it's what I've always thought about Bitcoin. It can go up, it can go down, but what I didn't like, especially with a lot of analysts and all the Bitcoin religious people, is that they're lying about it going, for example, to 50K or 100K. Remember, I told you guys in the beginning of this year that it wasn't going to 50K. So it might still get there in the future, for example, right? I'm not saying it won't get there, but just be realistic about where it can go in the time frame. Bitcoin has skyrocketed 175% from a year ago. Ethereum, which is the second largest cryptocurrency, was up 20% in the last 7 days alone. XRP, which is Ripple, the third largest, has gone up nearly 25%. And a lot of the other cryptos as well have skyrocketed. Litecoin, Polkadot, Cardano, and Stellar have seen huge gains as well. For the week, it was up 12.38%. It's set at 8,995 with 70 cents. In finance and banking news, the global markets were helped after the Senate Majority Leader McConnell said that they should have a new coronavirus stimulus of about $1.4 trillion in a spending bill. He also denied or rejected a $908 billion proposal from the House Majority Leader Pelosi and the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, and he said that it should be at around $500 billion. And just to make a correction, I said something wrong there in a second. The $1.4 trillion spending bill, they said that should include the situation with the stimulus in that bill. So it's the stimulus, quote unquote, is not going to be the $1.4 trillion. What I was meant to say is that the Senate Majority Leader wanted a $500 billion stimulus added on to the $1.4 trillion bill that's going to stave off the government shutdown. Other than that, the USD is skyrocketing to the downside, going down quite a bit. It fell to a 2.5-year low. I saw it this week with a lot of the currencies. For example, the Colombian peso went down by quite a bit. A lot of the emerging economies down here, like the peso in Mexico, also the real in Brazil, the Turkish lira, South African, rand, the ruble in Russia, the zloty in Poland have all spiked 7 to 11%, while some of the currencies in Asia, like China, Taiwan, and Korea, have gone up 5 to 12%. And this has to do a lot with, again, the stimulus, right? The U.S. now is at a $27 trillion. And this is what I always tell you guys about government. It's not the right or the left. I think at the end of the day, they're both driving the car over the cliff. It's just a matter of which one is going to drive it slower. And we're right now at $27 trillion in debt. I believe I have it written here. The difference in the deficit in the United States is at $3.1 trillion for the 2020 budget year. And so notice, Trump in 4 years, obviously, which it was exacerbated by the coronavirus situation with the stimulus that was run. But if Trump under 4 years added more debt than Obama in 8 years, and Obama in 8 years added more debt than every single president combined in the history of the United States. And there's going to be a reckoning that's going to come, right? I thought this was going to come probably more like 5-10 years from now, but now I would say it's going to be between about 3 to 7. I think it depends who ends up winning the election, because we still have the legal stuff going on, but it's not going to end well, right? Just look at your personal finances. Once you reach a point that you just can't pay your debts anymore, you go bankrupt. And everybody never thinks that a country can go bankrupt, like especially somebody like the U.S., but we're going to eventually get there if we keep racking on this amount of debt. So prepare, because I've been telling you guys this for a while. Other than that, emerging market currencies were continuing their gains against the American dollar. I just repeated that for you one more time. In commodities, there's a bit of a dispute in terms of the cut that OPEC wants to be able to go ahead and implement. They are supposedly going to have an agreement to cut about 7% as of this Thursday, although that's to be finalized, and they're going to make it a gradual cutback to be able to go ahead and not cause a shock to the system. For the week, U.S. crude went up 1.60%, is at $46.26. International Brent went up 2.22%, and that went to $49.25. And part of the reason, as I mentioned to you guys last week, why oil is starting to skyrocket or go up quite a bit, is because we have the situation with the vaccines. And if the vaccines are implemented, we could go back to some semblance of normal. People start going, flying, driving, and then, the economy will move again. Gold futures, however, because of the same situation, went down for a 5-month low. Positive vaccine news. Obviously, if there's less uncertainty, that people are going to buy less things like gold and silver, which are generally safe haven assets, even though my preferred investment vehicle now is more silver, due to the fact that it's an industrial metal. For example, it's in a lot of electronics. If you didn't know, on the back of mirrors, for example, there's silver as well. So it puts it for the lowest settlement since last June. For the week, gold was up 2.85%. It went to 1,839. Silver was up 6.35% to 24.26. Remember that the all-time high for gold, which was recently reached this year, is 2,074. The all-time high for silver is $49.45 back in 1980. One really interesting thing as well is if you take the price of gold and silver now and compare it to before 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago with inflation, it's actually the same price based on inflation, relatively. Whereas the US dollar, for example, has lost over 97% of its value. Other than that, political news, the director of U.S. National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, is stepping up the Trump administration's attacks on China on Thursday, labeling China the biggest threat to democracy and freedom worldwide since World War II. And he says that China is bent on global domination. In economic news, U.S. private payrolls increased by 307,000 in November, which was less than expected. It's been hampered by the situation with the second round of the coronavirus and the shutdowns that we've had in a lot of big economies. California, which is the biggest economy in the U.S. statewide, they're putting a lot of draconian lockdowns, whereas places like Texas and Florida, for example, they're not quote unquote locking down. The governor, I should say, of Florida, for example, said that you can't force anybody to lock down their business, which as a small business owner as well, I think is amazing because, in my opinion, right now, what's happening is the biggest transfer of wealth in history, where Walmart and Amazon and Facebook and all these guys, it's great, they can stay open, right? But small business can't. No restaurants or bars or, and obviously we can get into the specifics of that, but that's part of the reason why we have a situation where the economy now isn't growing as fast. The U.S. economy missed its analyst expectations of an addition of 460,000 jobs. The number came in November at just 245,000. There's been a decline of 610 additional jobs from October as well. So we had October that came in at 610. Then November was expected to be 460, but it actually came in at 245. Marks the 7th straight month of job additions. Obviously, we're starting to recover from the situation of the coronavirus, but we're still not back from where we were before the coronavirus. Australia's economy is growing again after the first recession that they've had in 30 years. They've also had a situation, if you remember the spat between China and Australia, where China is essentially refusing to import the materials. Obviously, Australia has a big mining industry, and a lot of that is growing to one of the fastest growing economies in the world, which is China. China actually allowed a huge boat to come in that was out at sea for quite a while that had a bunch of carbon on it. So even though the disputes are increasing between China and Australia, and they wanted to put taxes and block the imports of a lot of products from Australia to China, it seems like they can't really do that because they need the materials. Bank of America is expecting the GDP globally to rise at 5.4% in 2021, which is going to be the strongest gain in nearly half a decade. Meanwhile, the record $115 billion that's been poured into equity funds in the last 4 weeks. There's been $9.7 billion in inflows to equity funds in the week ending December 2nd. And risk-averse assets like gold and silver have taken a hit as a result. So there's a lot more confidence. There's a lot more positive news about what's going to happen with the economy. Obviously, we're getting the huge second round of the coronavirus, but with the vaccine news, it looks like things are going to get back to normal. People are starting to put their money back in, and that's part of the reason why we had that hit in gold and silver. Salesforce is making its biggest acquisition in its 21-year history. They're a cloud computing software company out of the United States. They're buying Slack, which is the mobile, I'm sure many of you guys use it. It's the mobile app where you can have chats and work and things in that. They're going to buy it for over $27.7 billion. And Tesla, one of the best performers in 2020, their stock went up by 570% through Tuesday trading. They now have had 5 straight quarters of positive net income, and the share price went down about 4% on Wednesday. They have a market cap now of $555 billion. Elon Musk also sent an email to employees to look to cut costs due to the fact that their profit margin is only about 1%, which indicates where he said that the stock price, the reason why it's so high is because people are looking for future profits. So they need to start looking at cutting costs due to that reason. In trade news, the Taiwan president, which I'm not going to try to butcher his name because I can't pronounce it, said on Friday that the bilateral trade deal between the Taiwan and the USA is going to reinforce U.S. support against, quote, the unrelenting intimidation from China. China have recently ramped up their military activities near the island. Remember that Taiwan says that they're an independent nation. U.S. has been protecting Taiwan, while China says that Taiwan should be a part of China and they're a rogue island. China also, I let you guys know, is 135 tons of carbon that they're going to allow into the country, which I mentioned to you guys before. In technology, the UK is going to become the first major country to authorize the US-German collaboration of the coronavirus vaccine that's going to be made by Pfizer and BioNTech. The vaccine is going to be rolled out next week. First to receive it are going to be the most vulnerable, elderly people in a lot of the elderly care homes and also medical workers. It's a 2-dose vaccine in the UK. They're going to have enough doses to vaccinate about 1/3 of the population, or 66 million people. China successfully also powered up what they consider to be an artificial sun nuclear fusion reactor for the first time. It's powered by a magnetic field, which fuses hot plasma at a rate of 150 million degrees Celsius, which Fahrenheit, which we use in the United States, is just, it's very hot. Other than that, in investment news, Shopify is reporting that Black Friday sales went up 75% year over year, hitting $2.4 billion. They said that the things that were most sold were apparel, accessories, health and beauty, as well as home and garden. And Airbnb and DoorDash are going to continue with their idea to be able to go ahead and go public for the first time. Their expectations of the money they're going to receive are actually higher than what they considered before the COVID. So Airbnb wants to receive about $33 billion compared to the 30 they had before, whereas DoorDash, which is the delivery company, they are hoping for $28 billion versus $25 billion before. Booming tech evaluations as well are luring a lot of money into public exchanges. Over $140 billion has been raised to date and 383 IPOs in the US this year. That's the previous boom. The previous record was in 1999 during the dot-com boom. And that's part of the reason, for example, why Uber and DoorDash want to try to go public. And HB, which was founded, Hewlett-Packard, which was founded by Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard in Palo Alto, California, in a garage in 1938, are now officially moving their company to Houston, Texas, just outside. They already have an HP enterprise business there. It's one of the largest employment hubs there out of Houston. And they're going to start building their new campus in the city. This move is going to result in no layoffs. And as most other people, Joe Rogan and now Elon Musk is looking to move as well. There's a lot of VCs that are actually saying they should move Silicon Valley to Miami. There's a lot of people moving to Austin. Nobody likes that socialism. Other than that, U.S. House of Representatives is passing a bill that's going to prevent companies that won't open their books for auditing to be removed from U.S. exchanges. This is targeting a lot of firms in China, which obviously they don't want to have a lot of fraud and things like that, which have appeared quite a bit with a lot of the books that are coming out of China. At international events, the International Organization of Migration says that back-to-back hurricanes Eta and Iota that hit Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, more than 500,000 people in these three countries have been displaced and will most likely look to re-establish themselves in the United States. The EU is urging their countries to reinforce their health systems and further coordinate restrictions during the holiday season due to the fact that we're going to try to avoid a resurgence of COVID-19. Don't forget that according to the CDC numbers, the survival rate is over 99.6%. And most of the deaths are from people that are already sick or elderly. More than 80% of the deaths are from people more than 65 years old. But, let's just shut down the whole economy again. Trump is also ordering all American troops to withdraw from Somalia as part of a pullback by the Republican president. He's also looking to withdraw forces out of Afghanistan and Iraq. And one quick thing that I saw as well in that article while I pulled the information is Trump is one of the last presidents in the last 40 years that hasn't started a war, which is a good thing because I consider war to be, I don't think, we spend more money on war than what we could spend on solving the global poverty crisis, for example. In an unusual facts this week, Singapore is becoming the first government to allow the sale of cultured meat, which is essentially meat made in a lab rather than being butchered and cut off the animal. They granted a company called Eat Just Inc., which is based out of San Francisco, regulatory approval. It's made out of chicken cells rather than cutting an actual chicken. Central America's second largest coffee exporter can't afford to boost production from the beans that a lot of the big chains prefer, including Starbucks. It's called, I had it here, the Arabica beans. In India, capital city of Delhi it's currently having its coldest October and November in the last 50 years. Mean temperature of 10.2 degrees Celsius, 50.4 degrees Fahrenheit the month of November. It's going to be the coldest November since 1949. Interesting because we always hear in the news about the global warming. And in Italy, the ever-active Mount Etna, which is Sicily's largest city, that's in the southern part of Italy, has one of the largest documented records of historical volcanism dating back to 1500 BCE. Now it's erupting out of two craters. It's one of the most active in the world. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.